out to your right so he could collect it. Thank you so much. We better get started because we have a test coming up next, when is it? Monday? And that's gonna be on 2 chapters, right? What are the chapters?
Chapters 1 and 2.
Okay, very good. So we got chapter 2, hopefully by the end of Friday. All right, Anthony, ready for the test Monday? I guess so. That's a good answer. I guess so. You got some confidence, eh?
Oh my god.
Oh, that. Thank you. I should have asked you to lock it for me. In which case, I could give you my password, which I'm not sure if I'm willing. Yeah, that would be fine. Thank you, Hunter. You got 24 hours grace period, discount of 50%. Okay, so I know tomorrow we don't have class, but if you would slide it under my door, my room is 43, about 30 steps. Right, and right, left, right. By 11:15 a.m. tomorrow, then you are okay. You get 50% discount. Pretty good deal, don't you think?
On what now? Discount on what?
Discount, great. You're great.
I
Not like price
Oh,
discount.
Isn't the point of getting a grace
Oh,
count?
no,
Like,
yeah, I'm good.
Well, that discount means you only
You got a
still
discount for that
getting,
book?
still getting 2 out of 10, you get 2 out of
So
5.
you got a discount for that book?
Discount for this, not for this class, for the other class, I'm thinking about throwing out a free.
Cause they don't got no used ones in there. And, you know, that book a whole C-note, man.
Well, you could talk to me after the class if you have a problem.
I just been taking pictures.
Take what, picture of the book?
Yeah,
It's
go-
illegal.
go
You
in
can
there.
take like, by 10% is all that's allowed. Beyond 10% is illegal.
Oh, well.
What's going on?
Well, class is canceled.
Oh, no. Did somebody suggest something? I better not. That's a bad start if someone suggests that. We could suggest something and we could go out and have a class, or we could find alternative classroom. What's going on? You don't have to live by PowerPoint slides. We could still do the class.
If
I
it
don't
don't
know
work
what's
this
going
time,
on, really.
it's gone. Don't work this time.
Is there a space?
Hey,
behind
don't
your
distract me, please. Is that a space? Is that a, no, I'm not giving my password away. It's
name?
me.
No, behind your name, like if you have a space in there,
Yeah.
it might be still counted as incorrect.
Okay. Well, you computer science me. Oh dear. It's my dog's name, so I can tell you what my dog's name is.
Oh, what kind of dog is he?
As though that will help. It's well, it was a yellow lab. He was kidnapped, so. Yeah.
You got him
You
like
never know what
microchip?
happened. I don't want to end up telling dog story in my economics class. Well, she didn't come back one day, and then that was it. We never had a closure, so we don't know what happened. Yeah, sad.
How do I add this to my car?
And then we adopted 2 stray dogs since, so that was a big comfort there. And one of them,
Maybe
one
there's
of
a
them,
problem with the. Maybe you should call do it.
Delete it and retype it.
Micah, would you come help me? Micah,
People have been buying.
Yeah.
It's all
okay, how about, Red, you look very reliable. Would you come lock in for me? Oh, here comes Micah. Ask and you shall receive, come on. So, if you would lock in and help me, yeah, and then I could just use a breakway. But we could do something, so how,
Hey, why
Look in. Oh,
What?
Shout out to Michael.
I think that's mine. You do. It's so embarrassing. Thank you. A hero, you know? Yeah. Thank you. It's nice to have a hero around. See, all the dog stories really help. Yeah. Not to say that I'm giving dog story every lesson. I do have a lot of dog stories. Oh, that's not mine. Okay, who's mine? Did he log in using his account? Did anybody pay attention?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So that means I have to log into Blackboard to pull out that PowerPoint slide. Okay, which one of you could tell me what is comparative, what is the difference between absolute advantage and comparative advantage? Let's go with that. Raise your hand if you want to try that. Okay, so what is absolute advantage? Anybody? Require password again. That the same password will work here. Oh, yeah, my dogs are alive. Very good. So yes. Okay, Petrus.
Absolute
Advantage.
advantage is when one person takes fewer hours to complete a task over
Very
another
good.
person.
Could anybody give an example?
Like Beth and Martha, you were doing
Like what? Like I
Monday.
take more time to lock in, whereas he takes just
Yeah.
1 second to lock in?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, boy, what kind of absolute advantage is that in logging in? You beat me to it, yeah, wow. That's a good example. What about comparative advantage? Anybody? Oh, come on, you can
When
look
a
back
call-
at your notes, you could look at your book, you could read it out, Morgan?
Comparative advantage is when one person has a comparative advantage over another if his or her opportunity cost of performing a task is lower than the other person's opportunity cost.
Okay, so what's the key word here?
Opportunity.
Opportunity cost, it has to be
Lower.
Lower.
low and not higher. Very good. Let's see if this PowerPoint works. We just want to open it. We don't want to save it, right? Correct? Getting him
Oh,
from
right.
people are more knowledgeable. What happened? I thought I opened it up. Open. That's it. I see it. So what's this? Ask me later. Okay, who say ask me later?
Right.
You blame me, okay, if it doesn't work, let's see. Ah. Okay. So what's
I
next?
just X out of
Exit.
that.
Okay, close it, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Boom.
Good advice so far. Hey. There, right there. Okay, so. So we talk about comparative advantage, we look at opportunity cost, and we look at the lowest opportunity cost. And country-wise, we also have what you call example of comparative advantage. For example, some of you play musical instrument. How many of you play guitar here? Okay, so you have an advantage over me because I'm only learning do, re, mi right now, all the strings, you know. So, some of you may have more education. That's not true. That's true with me, right? Than you, and so I have a comparative advantage. I will get a higher pay. But when you graduate with UNCP degree, yeah, the salaries are going to be just a pure high school diploma, right? So it's worth it. Training, all that experience, yeah. I mean, that's kind of like straightforward and don't have to get into it. National level, we talk about natural resources. Countries like South Africa has diamond and gold, so lots of African countries, in fact, think, well, Russia is not there, but Russia also have a lot of gold there. So they have some sort of comparative advantage in producing gold there. Cultural adoption of language, institutions, and so on. Institutions, well, language, because a lot of people say English is an important language, right? Business language. So a lot of nationalities all over the world, even though they don't speak English, they try to learn English because it's a good business language. Because so many countries speak English. So if you want to do business, you learn English. Well, not in so much in this country because you already know English, but in other countries that they don't speak so much English, they will take up English as a second language. Okay, TV and VCR. How many of you still have VCR at home? Do you watch it?
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. When I was in Australia, they tried to get rid of it. That was like 10 years ago. You know, you go to this store and it's like the whole pile, like so cheap, you know, like $1 because they want to get rid of VCR. When you're in Singapore, you don't see VCR anymore because they don't even want to sell VCR player. They move on very fast. But you know, some of us still watch VCR. So it originated from US, TV and VCR. They were both developed and produced in the US first before they export to other countries like Japan and all that. Why did the US fail to retain its lead in this market? Okay, let's get some volunteer to read this page. Help me to find a page. If you could. Okay, let's see where it is. If you find it, tell me, so it's fast. Okay, page 53 or 41 on your book. Economics Naturalist 2.3. Can I get a volunteer to read that whole paragraph? Come on, someone sit in the last two rows would be good, because the boys would, Okay, Henry, very good, go ahead.
Page 53.
Yep.
One of the most heated issues in the 1996.
Oh, wait. Did you get it right? Economic Naturalist 2.2. I guess that would be 41, yeah. I'm looking at page 22. One where you see the, yeah, okay. Go ahead, Dad, television, start from that.
That televisions
Yeah.
and VCRs were developed in the United States is explained in part by the country's comparative advantage in technological research, which in turn was supported by the country's outstanding system of higher education. Other contributing factors were high expenditures on the development of electronic components for the military and a culture that actively encourages entrepreneurship. As for the production of these products, America enjoyed an early advantage partly because the product designs were themselves evolving rapidly at first, which favored production facilities located in close proximity to the product designers. Early production techniques also relied intensively on skilled labor, which is abundant in the United States. In time, however, product design stabilized and many of the more complex manufacturing operations were automated. Both of these changes gradually led to greater reliance on relatively less skilled production workers. And at that point, factories located in high-wage countries like the United States can no longer compete with those located in low-wage areas overseas.
Okay, very good. So that is one real-life example of what is comparative advantage. The explanation of that is summarized very quickly here. I'm trying to use this instead of that one. So U.S. has a culture that encourages entrepreneurship. You got people like Bill Gates, you got people like Henry Ford, Oprah Winfrey. Yeah, I guess we would consider her an entrepreneur. High expenditure on development of electronic components for the military. That is true. We got a very high state-of-the-art military technologies and so on. Outstanding system of higher education that leads to skilled labor. A lot of people want to come to U.S. to study, graduate study. Not so much undergraduate. You know, they do it in other countries, and then they come to U.S. to study graduate degree because U.S. has a very good higher education. We got Harvard, we got MIT, and we got UNCP. Yeah, come on, be proud. But over time, product design stabilized and more complex manufacturing operation were automated. So what it is saying is you don't really need robot. Well, labor to do some of this work anymore. A lot of these works are automated. You heard about assembly line, right? Mass production. That will take forever to produce a pair of Levi blue jean. So they do it in the factory now, mass production. Right, same thing, computer, the laptop you're using here goes through the assembly line. You've seen a movie or pictures or video clip, and then all those people do, unskilled labor is they just, when it goes through it's their turn to put in just one component and you move on to the next person, another component, and that's how you assemble it together. Because then you got a little bit of precision, see? You're not missing a chip. Can you imagine like when you get your computer and say, oh, everything is except for the CPU? That would be bad because CPU is the most important part. That's the brain of the computer. So then rely more on less skilled production workers. Therefore, you cannot compete in other countries. So what this is saying is that all this high-tech stuff is down to basically assembly line production, which you don't require high-skilled labor, but blue-collar jobs really. And when it comes to blue-collar jobs, hey, we could outsource it to China, we could outsource it to Mexico, to take advantage of the cheaper labor cost. Okay, next I want to introduce a very important concept. It's called production possibility curve. And on the blackboard, there are a lot of video clips that you could download, and watch. And I think one of them is on PPC. How many of you have taken ECN 1000? Okay, your instructor would have covered what is PPC. This is a graph, which you see me draw over there. It describes the maximum, that's a keyword, amount that one good can be produced for every possible level of production of other good. So in other words, you gotta have two goods, it's a trade-off. You want hamburger or pizza? So a classic case is Guns and Roses. So if you want war, then you go for all guns and no roses. If you want peace, lots of love and peace, all roses, no guns. So these are the two extreme ends here. So we could call this point A, point E. And then you got this other point in between A, B, C, D, E. Right here. So this is various combination. Here is maybe 10 roses and 0 guns. Here maybe 20 guns and 0 roses. And then in between you have other combo or combinations of roses and gun. Now, this PPC is centered on one very important concept we talk about, scarcity principle, trade-off. Having more of one good generally means having less of another. That's true. If you have $100, if you spend it all on food, you don't have anything else for entertainment. If you spend it all on entertainment, you have to starve yourself till next week when you get paid again. So we're always making decisions like that called trade-off. Now we want to look at a model today, an example, big example here. We want to look at a small economy in which you only produce 2 goods here. So we always use 2 goods because one on the y-axis, one on the x-axis. In this case, we are either producing nuts or coffee. How about that? And you only have one worker, her name is Susan. And remember, she works only 6 hours a day. Remember that. That's an important assumption. So there it is. Oh, remember I have to come up with a site, yeah. So now we got this, nuts, it's on the x-axis, and your coffee is on the y-axis. I'm not going to redraw this because this graph is very clear. And it's also in your book, if you want to refer to it, if I turn the pages, you could still see on page 42, okay? So what I want to talk about here is, this is Susan, this is her so-called production possibility curve, and she only works 6 hours per day. I'm gonna ask you a lot of questions here to test if you understand. So let's look at Susan's PPC. So right here at point D, she produced nothing but nuts. That would be 12 pounds of nuts per day. Now over here would be, point A would be she produces nothing but coffee. If she does so, she will produce how many? 24 pounds of coffee. Wow, So which one is she better at?
Making coffee.
Producing coffee than nuts. Everybody get that? Okay. So you can almost say at this point that she has a blank advantage in producing coffee. What's that blank?
Absolute.
Absolute advantage. Right? Because she's better at producing coffee. Okay, now that's not the end of the story, because so far we say, oh, given that 6 hours, she could produce 24 pounds of coffee. Given 6 hours, she could produce only 12 pounds of nuts, if no coffee. Okay, these are the two extreme ends right here, A and D. Okay, let's look at the calculation. The rate of picking coffee is 24 pounds in 6 hours. So if you want to calculate rate, basically you say, so how fast can you do it in an hour? So take 24 divided by 6 hours, you get 4 pounds of coffee per hour. That's her rate of picking coffee. Okay, usually the rate you have to boil it down to like per unit. Her rate of picking nuts, as you could see, 12 pounds here divided by 6 hours, so we got 2 pounds of nuts per hour. So from that, we could make a conclusion right away that she has absolute advantage in producing coffee. What about relative comparative advantage? Do we know more? Can we say anything here yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, how, what? Go ahead. Oh, Henry, sorry. Yeah.
She only loses 2 pounds of nuts per hour if she focuses on the nuts, but she loses 4 pounds of coffee per hour, so she would have the comparative advantage in the nuts. Right?
Okay, that's a good try. Thank you for trying to answer that. We'll look at calculation, because remember last class I did the calculation for opportunity cost, so we're going to do the same. We don't know right away. Comparative advantage is a little bit more not so straightforward. We have to do calculation of opportunity cost. So the next slide is what I'm going to do. So right here, okay, so we're calculating the opportunity cost now. So this is the opportunity cost of producing nuts, first line there. Okay, so basically same thing like we did before. This is OCs of producing a nut. In terms of coffee, so very important. When we talk about opportunity cost, we're talking about producing one good in terms of the other good. So then you know that if you would want the answer to be in coffee, the final answer. So this is the technique of doing this kind of work. So then you know coffee has to go to the top in the fraction numerator, and then your nut has to go to the bottom. So what this is saying is that, okay, if you want to produce all 24 pounds of coffee, you have to give up 12 pounds of nut. Okay, sort of like what Henry said. So, except the conclusion is probably, well, different from what I'll be talking about here. So then you got 2 pounds of coffee. Okay? And then next you want to calculate the opportunity cost of producing coffee in terms of nuts. Okay, so you want your final answer to be in terms of nuts. So it's how I do it. So I think like that. So opportunity cost of producing coffee will be in terms of the other goods. So I put the other goods at the end. And then if you understand math, your high school math, if you want your final answer to be in nuts, then in terms of fraction, nuts has to be on top and your coffee has to be at the bottom. Everybody know what I'm talking about so far?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you for this good high school training. So then you know that you have to give up 12 pounds of nuts to gain 24 pounds of coffee. I'm not so worried about losing and gaining because it's the flip side of the other. I'm more concerned about the numbers. So you got half nut. So which number is lower? The second one, right? The half pound is lower than 2 pounds. Okay, now most of the students are okay up to this point. And then the next one is very important. The next one is called interpretation. So you could do the math. You say, okay, I got it. You know, look, what I got is half pounds of nuts is lower. So yeah, she got a lower opportunity cost right there because it's half pound. that, what opportunity cost are you talking about? We're talking about her opportunity cost of producing coffee in terms of nuts is lower than the opportunity cost of producing nuts in terms of coffee. So therefore, she has a comparative advantage in producing coffee. Very good. So it turns out that with this kind of calculation here, so the key is to look at right here, okay? Yes, you got half here, but then remember this is talking about opportunity cost of producing coffee in terms of nuts. So there it is. So the conclusion here is Susan has both absolute advantage in producing coffee as well as comparative advantage in producing coffee. Let me ask you a question now. This is very important. This shows how much you understand this thing. Let's look at point B, okay? In point B, how many pounds of coffee is she producing? 16 pounds. Everybody could interpret that. How many pounds of nut is she producing? 4 pounds. Okay. Well, let's say, I'm going to ask you the next question. So how many hours at point B is she producing coffee? How many hours is she producing nuts? Raise your hand if you want to answer that question. It's not a trick question. You are thinking. That's good. Could I get the attendance sheet? Do you have it now? May I have it? Oh, did I not pass out one? Oh. Okay, spare me a piece of paper, please, Chris. And then we'll start passing it around. Yeah, someone should alert me, you know. We didn't pass the attendance sheet. Okay, so how many hours at point B of producing coffee? 8. I'm sorry? Okay, you're not sure, so let me give you a hint.
4. Yeah, I think it's 4.
Okay, from 0 to 24 is 6 hours. So we're dividing this up into 1, 2, 3. So up here should be?
3.
Okay, you know how to do a pie, right? If I bring in the pie, I happen to bring in the pie today. Well, I already ate half of it. Okay, so if you cut it into 3 pieces, we got 1/3, 2/3, and 3/3, which is 1, right? Okay, so this is like that. Chop, chop, chop. We got 3 pieces, 1, 2, 3. So 16, this is 6 hours. So 2/3 off 6 hours is?
4 hours.
Very good, 4 hours. So 1/3 of 24 hours is, well, I mean, this is in pound. Yeah, 1/3 of 6 hours is?
2 hours.
2 hours. Very good. So this means that at point B, she would have put in 4 hours of producing coffee. And how many hours of producing that? 2 hours. Everybody got it? 6 hours minus 4 hours is 2 hours. Assuming you got it, so let's move to the next point. Patricia, you look very confused. So coming up, so point C, how many hours of coffee is she producing?
2.
2 hours? Very good. How many hours of nut is she producing? 4 hours. 4 and because if you look at the rate again, 4 times 2 is 8, and what's that one? 2 times 4 is 8. So look at her rate there. So everybody got it? If you go back to the other slides here, okay, so this might become clearer. 4 pounds of coffee per hour. So 2 hours would be, right? 4 times 2, 8. So how many? 2 pounds of nuts per hour. So 2 hours would be, this is 1 hour. So that would be, that's 2 hours. Because you're looking at this, so 2 hours would be 4 times, 2 times 2, so you get 4. And that one is higher because that's 4, and that's 2 hours, right? So therefore you have, that's how you get 16. Okay, so this is just to say that, you could have combination, there's such a thing called trade-off. Next, let's move to all these points here on page 43 in your textbook. You got all these points here. Okay, we got A, B, C, D, and now we added 2 points, point E and point F. So point E is what we call inside the graph. Okay, point F is what we call outside the graph. So therefore we use the term unattainable. Okay, why is that unattainable? Let's take a look. So at point F you got 16 and 8 here. So how many hours of producing coffee? Well, we talked about that earlier. So at point F, still 4 hours of producing coffee, correct? How many hours of producing nuts? 4 hours. 4 plus 4 is 8 hours. We got a problem. What is the problem?
You only work 6
Very good. She only works 6 hours. So she will have to work overtime. So therefore, that is not within her production possibility curve. So we call that point unattainable. Whoa, so far away. And if you want to get there, you could. You have to be paid overtime for all that 2 extra hours. Make sense? Okay, very good. Let's look at this tiny little point here called point E. We have a name for it. We call it inefficient. So efficient, inefficient, these are very important words in economics. What does it mean by inefficient? So let's look at the page 43. Could somebody read? Help me to read inefficient point. Richard, you got a book? Do you want to read?
Where's it at?
Page 43 at the bottom there. There are 4 definitions. Pick the one that say inefficient point and read that definition.
Any combination of goods for which currently available resources enable an increase in the production of one good without a reduction in the production of the other.
Okay, go ahead and read the next one as well. Efficient point.
Any combination of goods for which currently available resources do not allow an increase in the production of one good without a reduction in the production of the other.
Okay. So again, if you have your book, please bring it to the class. Okay, I hope you buy the books because the PowerPoint slides is not enough because you have to have come to class. It's more for me, the PowerPoint slides, and it's more for you for review. If you really want to understand, you really need to get a book. So efficient point, inefficient point. Okay, and that's the definition, see? So I'm gonna come back to this. Now all this point on the line A, B, C, D, we call it attainable because we could reach them, okay? And point E is not attainable, and this one is, well, it's attainable because it's inside, but it's inefficient. So as Richard had read the definition for what exactly is it consists of inefficient or efficient point. Now, I hope you understand, if you don't have the book, you're relying on this PowerPoint slides, and you're welcome, like I said before, to print out in advance because you have access to it, bring it to the class and then add notes to it. Because I can't always refer to it because, you know, you have been given it too. So what this is saying is, well, I'm not gonna do it for those people who don't have books, but, okay, so efficient point means this point that are on A, B, C, D. Now, if you look at A, B, C, D, right, you have to, moving from point A to point B, for example, you will have to give up how many units of coffee in order to gain 4 units of nuts? You have to give up 24 minus 16, which is 8. You have to give up 8 units in order to gain that 4 units. Next point down, moving down from point B to point C, you have to give up another 8 units of coffee in order to gain 4 more units. So there is such a thing called trade-off. There's such a thing called sacrifice. Okay, at the expense of the other. But look at point E. Point E is one of its kind. For point E, if you move from, point E is where you have 8 and 4. You're underproduced. I mean, this is a kind of worker that employers should fire. Because look what happened. This person works, how many hours here? 2 hours. How many hours here? 2 hours, so that's 4 hours. What happened to the other 2 hours? Playing music, eating lunch, playing hooky on the job, you know, things like that. So you're not quite working 6 hours. So, and as you can see, moving from point E to point B, what happened? You gained 6 16 minus 8, which is 8. Does everybody has to leave all the time? Okay, if you don't have to leave, try not to leave because it's distracting. But if you have to, okay, don't make it a habit, please, because it gets to be so, unless it's really emergency, do it at the beginning of the class or at the end. So, okay, so from point E to point B, you have 16 minus 8, which is 8 units. So you have to actually gain more, but then you're not losing anything here. So there's no trade-off. Okay, you're not losing any nuts here. Nuts remaining at 4. Moving from point E to point C, how many nuts are you gaining? You're gaining 4 units of nuts, but you're not losing any units of coffee. It remains at 8. So that's the definition for why it is inefficient. Think you understand? Any questions on that? Okay, very good. Now there is a point to saying all that. So let's look at somebody else, Tom. This is second person, not Susan anymore. This is Tom's PPC. Now, what's the difference between this PPC and the other PPC? Take a look and tell me. Raise your hand if you want to try it. Otherwise, I call your name. Yeah, finish it and bring it up here so I could continue to learn the name. So what's the difference between this one and the other one? There's a little bit of similarity. Yes, tell me your name, please, again. Tyra. Okay, go ahead, Tyra. Huh?
Not Kurt.
Oh, all right. It is not code. What else? A little bit more. Thank you. Do you see a similarities between this and Susan's PPC?
Yeah.
Yes, I see somebody raise their hand back there. Eden, right? Go ahead.
It's reversed. Tom makes
Very good. Reverse. Seems like the X and Y axes are reversed. Do you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you wait for me to point out? Okay, now this guy say, I can only pick 12 pounds of coffee, but I could do 24 pounds of nuts. So therefore, he would have absolute advantage in picking
Nuts.
blank. Nuts is the answer. Very good. And then again, back to, so if you look at this same calculation, you see that, okay, 24 hours of, what is that now? Nuts in 6 hours, so his rate is 4 pounds of nuts per hour. Just like Susan's rate in picking coffee. Now, what about his rate of picking coffee? So in this case, it's less. It's 12 pounds in 6 hours, so, and then if you calculate his rate, you would have to bring it down to an hourly rate, which is 2 pounds of coffee per hour. So with that conclusion, we'll ask this kind of question on the test, so you make sure that you understand how to analyze it. It's economics, it's social science. It's not just definition, what is efficient point, what is inefficient point. We ask a 5 questions, so you have to know how to derive it. So if you see something like that, straight away you could say, oh yeah, so Tom has a absolute advantage in picking nuts. So then the next thing that I asked earlier, and Henry answered that question, is what about comparative advantage? Do we know right away? Now, right away, we have to calculate something. What is that something?
Opportunity cost.
The opportunity cost. We have to calculate that. So same calculation, right here. Okay, the opportunity cost, this is for Tom now, not for Susan, of producing nuts would be, okay, if you give up 12 pounds of coffee, because that's how much you could produce, a little bit less than Susan. You will gain if you give out 12 pounds of coffee, the extreme, you will gain 24 pounds of nuts. In other words, if you produce nothing but coffee or nothing but nuts, what is the number? So you got half pounds of coffee. Again, pay attention to nuts will be in terms of coffee, and coffee will be in your numerator. You will have to do this calculation on the test, be sure you know how to do it. So if the example in the book, I highly encourage you to work on it. Okay, so opportunity cost of producing coffee, likewise, you will get 2 pounds of nuts. So, which number is lower? The one on top, yes. So far, so good, but can you interpret it correctly? So therefore, Tom has what kind of advantage? In this case, we're talking about comparative advantage because we're calculating opportunity cost. And producing,
Nuts.
does everybody agree it's nuts and not coffee? Okay, very good. This gets boring a little bit, so I'm gonna move faster because I see that you understand. So nuts, because when you look at it, right, half is lower than 2, and then you look at that. It's the opportunity cost of producing nuts in terms of coffee. Don't get it too confused. So Tom has a comparative advantage in producing nuts as well. Now I'm gonna challenge you a little bit more. Let's combine the two together. Okay, so this is Susan's PPC, this is Tom's PPC, the green and the red. Christmas color, very nice. So where they intersect, what do you think is that number? Well, actually you don't know. But, yeah, you will know very soon. If you look at the book, you know. So this is a conclusion. Susan has absolute comparative advantage in producing coffee. On the other hand, Tom has absolute comparative advantage in gathering nuts. So now we're going to give you a problem to work on, okay? So we're gonna work on this problem together. Given a 6-hour workday, again the same, suppose that both of them had divided their time so each person output consists of exactly half nuts and half coffee. So this half nuts and half coffee does not mean you split the nut into half. It's not. It's your total output you have, half of it should be nuts, half of them should be coffee equally. So how much should they produce? So we look at that point of intersection, which is point B, that turns out to be 8 and 8. What does it mean? 8 pounds of coffee, 8 pounds of nuts. For who?
Each one.
For each or for both? Same thing, right? Very good. So Susan output in this case, 8 pounds would be 2 hours of picking coffee, 4 hours of picking nuts. So I'm not gonna go over that because you could look at your rate earlier and get this number here. But see, 4 and 2 adds up to be 6 hours. And so now what about it? See, she has to spend more hours picking nuts, but only less hours picking coffee. So likewise for Tom, it's just the reverse, right? Spend more time picking coffee and less time picking nuts, 8 pounds and 8 pounds. So if you add 2 together, let me do a summary here. Please write this down. This will help you. So this is Susan. So then you have nuts and you got coffee. So this is 8, 8, 8, 8. Total is 16, 16 altogether is 32. Very good. Okay, so that's the total so far. Now we answer the question. Susan and Tom allocate their time so each person output is half nuts and half coffee. So far, so good. Let's go on and answer one more question, which is the most important question why we are doing this question. That is, how would that change if they can specialize in producing good that each enjoying comparative advantage? Let me ask you this. So, if they were to choose only one product to produce, what should Susan be producing?
Coffee.
Coffee, yes. What should Tom be producing?
Nuts.
Very good. So if they do that, watch what happens. It will be right here. Because remember that will be, then you take basically 6 hours time, what was it? So if you produce nothing but, because right here, right, 12 and 12, it's when you, Susan only producing coffee. Now, if she's specializing in producing coffee, if you go back, look at her graph, right, that will be up here, 24, that extreme, and then Tom will be this extreme, producing nuts, and now we got 24, 24. All right. What do you do with that 24, 24? You share. Say, okay, I got 24, so I could give half to Tom. Half of what? I'm Susan. You're Tom. Half of coffee. So I got 12, you got 12. How about trading your 12 units of nuts with me for coffee? So now we got 12 and 12. Are we better off? Yes, because then this become what's his number?
48.
48. Is this better? Yes. So now it points out the beauty of having such a thing called specialization. So if they exchange coffee and nuts with one another, each one can consume a combination of two goods that would have been unattainable. But if they specialize, then they do better. So in this case, they give half to each other, one of them, ended up having 4 extra units of each. Instead of 8, they now have 12 pounds each. So at the end of the day, they're actually better. So the moral of this whole exercise is that if you specialize, you actually end up doing better. And you're actually outside that point called unattainable point here. And you won't have to hire or work overtime because then specialization training takes care of it. That's the spirit behind international. Okay, thank you for coming. I'm still on Wednesday. Excuse me, today's already Wednesday, on Friday, yes.
Thursday.